It is undeniable that Assassin's Creed has been one of the most influential franchises in the universe of gaming. It is understandable how there are die-hard fans out there, even though Ubisoft has led it to its demise in the recent years. I myself have been a fan of the Assassin's Creed video games franchises for many years now, and to be honest, it hasn't always been a happy relationship. While their early games captured my interest with their exceptional storytelling and fun gameplay experiences, the series' middle years were weighted down by Ubisoft's greedy decisions and questionable executions. However, even the latter games were really enjoyable at the moments, and it's totally up to one person's preference. And as for me, I would be lying if I would have told you that I didn't enjoy an Assassin's Creed game. I've been playing the series for ages now, and I pretty much enjoyed every single one of them. Each one of them had their own unique characteristics and specialties. Some managed to deliver compelling stories, some managed to deliver outstanding combat experiences, and some others excelled in parkour and other small details. Nevertheless, we must all agree that this is not the same franchise as it was when it all started. Recent games have associated more on the RPG elements, taking away from the glory from the old school. You might think my favorite AC game is an old school one at this point, but spoilers, you're in for a surprise. So in this video, I'd like to rank my favorite Assassin's Creed games up to date. However, mind you that I'll only be mentioning the top 10 titles, and also keep in mind that this list is according to my own preferences. AC Syndicate managed to secure the 10th spot on my list with its vivid depiction of 1860s London. The steampunk vibe of the game was certainly impressive, and the detail put into its world was kind of genius by Ubisoft's design team. The game was released October 23, 2015, and the Ubisoft misfortune it was up against one of the greatest games the world has ever seen, The Witcher 3: Wild Hunt. The game looked pretty good at the glance, but once you get deeper into it, you could see how it fell apart on its technical side. The game was held together by frustrating and annoying motion blur effects, followed by frequent slowdowns. The game was poorly optimized and texture pop-ins were fairly common on the PlayStation 4. You could still spot some of these issues even on the more powerful PlayStation 5. Story-wise, it revolves around Crawford Starrick, Grand Master of the British Rite of the Templar Order, and the one who controls London. You also get to meet tons of interesting characters, including historical figures like Alexander Graham Bell. I won't get into the details about the characters, but it's worth mentioning that Ubisoft experimented with this game by bringing two protagonists that can be changed according to your liking. And the most important fact about this game is that it was the last old-school AC type of the game. When it was released in 2007, the very first Assassin's Creed game brought its unique gameplay experience to the hearts of the players. Fun fact about the game, Ubisoft was first planning on making Prince of Persia sequel to the PlayStation 2 console when the new generation of consoles were around the corner. Long story short, originally named Prince of Persia Assassin during the development. The game finally changed its whole new franchise with a whole new approach alongside an open world to become what it is today. It brings the story of the assassin called Altair, who is the member of the real-life group that would perform politically motivated murders between the 11th and the 13th centuries called Hashashin or Assassins. The game is set during the times of the Third Crusade in the Middle East and brings a rich and interactive story for you to enjoy. The game was very story-focused and it had a long yet decent running, and the happenings in this game have great importance in the lore, at least in the earlier of the Assassin's Creed titles. The game wasn't perfect in any way, it had tons of new mechanics and most were really sloppy. However, the game managed to bring never-seen parkour mechanics into the gaming world, and its overall feel left the players wanting more. Assassin's Creed 3 was one of the most important titles in the series, as the game experimented with a lot of things that were later added to the rest of the series, and it also ended the story of the Desmond Miles. The main story of the game followed a hot-tempered Native American assassin named Connor, and we get to live most of his life. From his childhood to a teenager assassin recruit to a grown-up deadly assassin. But he was not the only playable character in the game, as the earlier part of the game, or in other words, in the epilogue of the game, lets you play as Connor's father, Hayden Kenway. The story is set in the times of the American Revolution, and this is one of the main reasons that its story and the game itself stand out from the rest. You get to explore Boston and New York City, unraveling many historical characters and happenings. It even lets you experience the Battle of Bunker Hill in a very interactive way, and the overall experience of the game was really good and refreshing. Ubisoft shows how good they can be with their story and the environment design through this game, and the Assassin's Creed 3 stands as one of the best open world games the world has ever seen, with its massive playable map. The latest title of the franchise, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, follows the path of the Origins and the Odyssey, bringing them more massive open world RPG style experience. The game focused on the dark age of the England, and the characters in the story was brought to life with spectacular scenery with an amazing level of detail, which makes the game the most beautiful one yet. The game lets you play as a Norse Viking named Eivor, aka Wolf-Kissed. And it's just like the previous title, Odyssey, Eivor can be either male or female. I won't get into details of the story as most of you might have not played the game yet. Anyways, I'm glad to say that the Valhalla delivers the story in an exceptional way, and it is this time your decisions can actually affect the outcome. The game is full of RPG elements, and I think it's the highest Ubisoft can go with the RPGs. However, my biggest complaint is that it's ridiculously long and the grind is insane, just like in the last titles. But the amazing Witcher Skellige-like environment and the engaging story arcs covers up most of the flaws with this game, and it's a pretty enjoyable one if you look at it with the open mind. Ubisoft was not joking back in 2018 when they said that the latest Assassin's Creed title will be an Odyssey. AC Odyssey defined a new benchmark for big maps, and oh boy, wasn't it massive. The game is so massive that it sometimes feels like running, swimming and horse riding like a simulation. The game unveiling a pretty touching yet convoluted story, which also was enjoyable at some times. It also followed the several main storylines at once and often made it very confusing to the players. However, in the end, you still get that satisfaction of finishing a game, and the exploration in the game made it even more worth it. The main selling point of the game is not just a story that is inspired by the Greek tragedies, but also the vast lands and the epic scenery. The game will need a serious number of hours to complete the story, and Odyssey brought the worst grind into entire series to make things even worse. Another disappointing fact that even though the map was massive, it wasn't filled with many meaningful side quests, but just camps everywhere. Anyways, the game introduces two playable characters, male and female, and the RPG elements in the game was a fresh take in the series. All of these facts collectively make Assassin's Creed Odyssey my 6th favorite title of the series. It's needless to mention at this point that the trilogy of Ezio is one of the best stories the world has ever seen. The game is a sequel to Assassin's Creed 2's marvelous story, and Brotherhood is a game that takes its predecessor quality a step further. The game came out in 2010 and featured similar mechanics and playstyle similar to the AC2. and also brought in a whole lot of new elements to the franchise. Come to think about it, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood was the first in the Assassin's Creed series to adapt slight RPG elements. As the game's name suggests, it was also about building an army, a brotherhood of assassins to fight off the corrupt and evil Templar forces out of Italy. And the game brought life to many iconic places and characters from Renaissance, including Da Vinci and Machiavelli. This time you get to interact more with the Da Vinci and explore his War Machine side quest for unique experience and exclusive rewards. Brotherhood also concluded the romantic story of Ezio and Cristina, and all these together make it one of the best games ever. A separate introduction to Assassin's Creed 2 is probably unnecessary. It was the game that decided the franchise's future and gave the life to one of the legendary characters, Ezio Auditore. The game brought Italy as the setting in a more modern and colorful skin. Parkour and free running in the game was refined into something even more user-friendly. The game was an overall fun game to play. What made it stand out, however, it is the unmatched greatness and storytelling. You get to live out the life of a playboy whose fate changes into something more serious and tragic with what happens to his family. Everything about this game was simply amazing, from the visuals to the iconic sound design. Talking about the sound design, Ezio's Family, the defining soundtrack of the entire franchise, was the first of the OST of the Assassin's Creed 2. Assassin's Creed Black Flag was a sprawling addition to the franchise that was wisely emphasized freedom and fun. It was successor to the previous Assassin's Creed 3, unraveled the story of the Connor's grandfather, Edward Kenway, a pirate embroiled in the war between assassins and Templars. Black Flag was Ubisoft's take on the golden age of pirates and began around 1715. He managed to trim out all the unnecessary stuff of its story and gameplay and took a fresher and cleaner approach to the storytelling. It was presented in a way that appreciated the lore, tone of the story, and also takes risks to provide entertainment to the player. And on top of everything off, it's one of the best looking games at the time and still stands the test of time to date visual-wise. Despite your console's choice, it was one of the best designed games, and experience was free from the constraints of the devices you've used. The landscapes were well designed, perfectly lit, and showcased tropical lands backed by amazing water effects. The fighting mechanics were also redesigned to bring more fluidity and diversity. The dual swords brought the fun element, and new execution animations made combat more cinematic too. I wouldn't even be surprised if this was your favorite Assassin's Creed title, to be honest. The last title of Ezio's trilogy, Assassin's Creed Revelations, was also the best out of the three, at least in my opinion. You get to live out the later life of Ezio in a whole new setting. The game takes you to 1511 AD, Constantinople, and brings all of the three characters from the previous titles, Desmond Miles, Altair, and Ezio Auditore, to tell the vivid story and end Ezio's legendary tale. The game also introduces a new hook blade, which can be incorporated in combat and climbing, and also features a lot more upgrades to the utility kit of Ezio. The zipline implementation of the game was also pretty fun, and the story was solid. You get to get through the time back and forth to play all the three characters. It was an emotional and powerful story. It was truly saddening to see how Ezio's story came to an end with this title. Another great thing worth mentioning about this game, it is its multiplayer mode. The deathmatch mode stood out as you were given a player to hunt in the crowd while you were also target all along. And my favorite Assassin's Creed game of all time is Assassin's Creed Origins. I bet you didn't expect this. Origins was the first modern AC title to drift away from the linear playstyle of the series and embrace the RPG future of the series. Origins brings Ptolemaic Egypt in a vibrant and breathtaking way, and the game is simply full of life. It's kind of ironic how the game is literally set in desert, but has more life than latter Assassin's Creed titles that released. There are many animals you can hunt, more than what Odyssey has, and the cities are populated with various NPCs of various professions. The overall setting and the environment couldn't have been any better. The simulation of ancient life was on point. The mud, the hay covered in hovels, dead bodies that depict the plague, and how easy it was to die of common diseases. The game lets you live out the life of Magi named Bayek of Siwa, and unravel his story of vengeance, love, and pain. The game tells you the story about the origin of the Order of Assassins. One of the major changes that happened was the revamping of entire combat system. Ubisoft got rid of the old school AC combat and added more hack and slash type of combat experience to complement its RPG nature. Upgrading weapons and leveling up your character was a vital part of the gameplay too. However, they took out the iconic hidden blade of the game, but you still get one near at the end of the game. So this wraps up my personal list of my favorite Assassin's Creed games. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and please do also let me know of your list in the comment down below. Lastly, please do consider supporting me on my Patreon. I will leave down links below in the description. On top of that, check out the rest of my bigger special videos that I have put a lot of time and effort to create. Thank you so much for watching, like and subscribe, and have a wonderful day.